here we go. Our first guest today is Matt Martinez. And what we're going to talk about with Matt is what's going on in the world of CBDCs.
Awesome. So thanks again for having me, Pedro. Always good to be on here. And yeah, just what we've been working on together, been doing a little bit of research, seeing what's happening with the CBDCs here. A lot of recent news has really come up. So at this point, we're looking at 141 countries that have actually taken steps into either a pilot program development or launched something in regards to a CBDC in their country. So for most people, they're asking, what is a CBDC? What is this going to do for us? And it's essentially a digital form of currency that will be held by a central bank in whatever country and distributed for facilitating transactions and essentially changing the way that cryptocurrencies are essentially decentralized and centralizing it and being backed by the central bank. So the main thing that we've also have to take into consideration is that there really isn't much out there on this type of topic. And the reality is that Nigeria is probably one of the only places that's really implemented something full scale and tried to implement it. China, has been doing work as well. Japan's in pilot stage with a number of other countries, but there's a lot of skepticism from the market and consumer sentiment on what this is going to entail. So especially here in America, there's, the FedNow program coming out, which isn't a CBDC, but just consumer sentiment has created a misconception around that idea and led people to some misinformation that's maybe guided them in the wrong way. And that's ultimately what this is about, is, educating people on, what we know, what we don't know, and the reality that this is a changing subject that will, evolve with time and will further develop our understanding as, history makes itself.
All right. Well, we got another guest, as always, Mr. Brett Jennings, one of our favorites, co-host, my friend. Go ahead, Brett. What do you got to say?
What's happening this very fine Tuesday afternoon, man? So, kind of what Matt was saying, which is CBDCs are something that's the end goal for the government, but they're starting with FedNow. And what FedNow basically does is it allows the access that cryptocurrency does as far as facilitating the value of your money. Let's take, for instance, on a Friday afternoon, you get paid and you cash your check and they say, well, the money's not in the bank yet, but it's got to be cleared and you got to have to wait until Monday. Why do you have to wait for Monday? It's your money. So the channels that be only output money at a certain time of day, and they only do it once or twice a day. So if you don't fit in that channel, you're waiting. So the old system is the way that is right now with the legacy system, and what FedNow does, and for a fee, by the way, people need to understand, I think it's for like $19.99 or $20 a month. They want you to basically pay for convenience.
Yeah.
So you don't have to wait for your money. You can get it immediately, which you kind of already should, because you're waiting for them to clear a channel of cash that they already know it's cash. So I don't, it's just a way to speed things up and to be able to keep up with crypto in a sense as far as speed and transfer of value.
Yep.
Well, you know what? I couldn't agree more. Looking at the situation at hand, we're at a very precarious moment. I mean, what is really going to happen with our dollar? I mean, a lot of industries are going to suffer, I believe. But we've got one more guy here. Ted, why don't you introduce yourself properly?
Hi, everybody. I'm Ted Finkelman, real estate agent here in Las Vegas and Miami Beach, crypto certified through Propi and a meta agent, and am also on the same crypto and blockchain committee as these guys, the first of its kind at a local association level, Las Vegas Realtors Crypto Blockchain Committee. And great conversation, guys. Just to maybe enlighten people a little bit about what a CBD is and stands for, Central Bank Digital Currency, is essentially the government's digital dollar. In the same way the government guarantees the fiat, the paper currency that we have in our pocket, and guarantees its value as far as what the number says on the bill. Central CBDC is it will be a government-backed and guaranteed digital version of the dollar, and there's a lot of apprehension about moving forward with something like this, but the fact of the matter is it's really going to be necessary from the standpoint of our economy and the way we do things, transitioning from fiat or regular currency to digital currency. In the same way, what we're doing on the committee is moving all of the contracts and the way we do business into the digital space from pen and paper or hard copies of things that aren't easily accessible or shareable to people. So I just wanted to get that out of there so people understand the context about what we're actually talking about.
CBDC is basically the government's cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
But the huge difference between Bitcoin and the reason why Bitcoin was started is the government is basically taking the technology behind Bitcoin, which is able to facilitate things a lot quicker, and they're basically centralizing it. But people need to understand the huge difference is that Bitcoin is not controlled by anybody. It's decentralized. That is basically 90% of the point of it. Yep. I mean, the technology behind it is absolutely amazing. Blockchain, don't get me wrong, but it's the fact that it's truly decentralized. If you wanted to go after Bitcoin and you wanted to shut down Bitcoin, who would you go after?
You can't.
Nobody. You can't. It's created by the people, for the people, run by the people. So the government wants to take the technology of that and how you can facilitate it because they like that part of it, but they want to centralize it all. And the only difference between the American dollar and a digital currency from the government is that, it's the same thing. It's backed by the dollar, it's backed by the government, it's backed by the dollar, and the government's backed by CBDCs. That's the only difference. But that centralization people need to understand is all the difference in the world. Because once they are able to control you or centralize you digitally, who knows what they can add on to that?
Yeah, I feel like that's the biggest worry is the unknown, and people talk about the scares of what's going to happen, where's their control, where is it limited, where does it stop, and the way that it's presented on paper, if you take it for true face value, is at least when you look at FedNow, which is not a CBDC, and we'll use that as an example, it's just simply there to facilitate faster transactions between consumers, retailers, banks, and the central banking institutions, and that's all it is. But again, it could be taken in any which direction, which puts a lot of fear in people. And I think the unknown is, and especially seeing the catastrophes with Nigeria and what happened with their digital currency, just puts a lot of worry into people.
So people need to know that too, which is one of the examples of the countries doing it was Nigeria, and it was an absolute disaster.
Yeah.
An absolute disaster. So it's like AI right now. There is this promise of amazement that can happen and potential that can happen. But then there's also the dark side of it that can happen. And at the end of the day, it's humans that are behind it. Like the internet. The internet can be used for good. The internet can be used for bad. At the end of the day, it's humans that are controlling the internet. The only difference here is AI might get to the point where it's beyond humans being able to control, which is one of the dark sides of it. So, but right now it's like anything, you need to approach it. Like that's why it makes all the difference in the world that you have people like us in the room right now who have a blockchain committee for a realtors association where we can kind of be ahead of things and see where we lie and see what we can do about that, because you want to have the right people at the helm to steer a ship on something like this.
These are all great points, and part of it is talking about it and educating people about what it's all about. Now, with respect to the CBDC part and the example that Brett mentioned with respect to Bitcoin and being decentralized, the value is established in different ways, right?
Agreed.
Through Bitcoin and decentralized, it's an agreement between parties. there's no guarantee or assurance that it's going to be worth this amount because of whatever might fluctuate in the market or any type of nefarious things, which goes to the next point that I wanted to make was that, the promise is great and is a lot more likely to come out on the positive side without bad actors, without the human element that exhibits the greed and tries to take advantage of the information. And more specifically, and where we'll end up going with this, is people's data, because that's ultimately what it's all about, and where AI is going, and some of why I wanted to get involved in the committee and have these kind of discussions is because, our businesses, and we were talking about this a little while ago, and don't mean to go off on too much of a tangent, but our whole business is transitioning now from the way things are currently done or the way things used to be done, on pen and paper and archived and hard copies and that type of thing, into the digital realm, which means things are encoded into software. Not just the real estate contracts we write on site at a house instead of having to go back to the office and print something out and write it out, in those ridiculous ways, but also the real estate, the way transactions are going to be done electronically. And here we go, on blockchain, because it's a lot more secure and effective way to not just protect people's data, but also enable them to monetize it and prevent other people from monetizing it without their authorization and consent.
In simplistic form, you're having machines do it. That's it. We were talking before the show started. I said that's like when you had a horse and plow that did farming, and now you have tractors.
Yeah.
Right? You're just having a machine do it. So a lot of the work that's done is a system, and it's a process. And what you're talking about, what Ted's talking about, is putting these things into smart contracts, which are basically having machines do the work, and it's transparent and it's all stored on blockchain. So that's all you're really doing is a lot of the process in many different industries, whether it's data or the way that things are facilitated, can be done automatically. And all you're doing is having a machine do it automatically. That's it.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of how not just the real estate transaction is going to be streamlined, made more efficient, and as a result, when you cut out inefficiencies, they become less expensive. So what we're talking about is streamlining everything, making it more safe and secure. When this a real estate transaction or anything done on blockchain is recorded on blockchain, it's on so many different levels that nobody's going to be able to go in there and alter it or do anything to affect how that went. And that is just where all the transactions, everything that we're talking about, is going.
So Pedro, what do you think, man? You think a future of CBDCs with smart contracts in real estate? Right?
I think we've already kind of talked about that, right?
Well, yeah. Now, other than having stable coins, which aren't backed by the government, but they're kind of backed by the government because of what they're backed by. That's being used to facilitate real estate transactions. So what about having the CBDs come in and the government saying, what I guess I'm saying is, do you think that if we get a mass adoption of CBDCs where they become a lot more common practice and everybody overall knows what they are or are familiar with them, that will make facilitating real estate transactions with smart contracts and using CBDCs to pay for it? Do you think that will be a lot more common? Do you think that will kind of kick it off or help it get going quite a bit? What do you think?
I don't see a world without blockchain technology anymore. I don't. I think that world is, before that, like you said, horse and buggy. What we know now with the technology that exists, what people are playing with Chat GPT. How do you say it?
Chat GPT.
GPT. I always blow that. But I use it all the freaking time. I love it. All right. But think about it. Your life, once you start messing with that, changed, right? Well, now people in general, even as of the last 5 years, want everything on the fly, fast and secure. I think industry as a whole is going to have to adopt it to protect us, all right, from maybe bad actors that can use AI, right? Think about that. So how are they going to protect us from ourselves? And Ted said a really good point. The only way to do it is to decentralize, and basically what he was saying. Now, CBDCs are not the answer because they're a centralized platform. We need to go to a decentralized platform if we're going to make money trustworthy. But here's the question. Will bankers allow this? The answer, no. They won't. Will governments allow this? The answer, no. If they're going to have to go through the motions and do this, they're going to be grabbed by the nose horn. I mean, like this. You know, you get a bull, you grab him by the nose with a ring. That's what it is, a ring horn. And that's the only way. And the only thing that will do that is the public outcry. But unfortunately, the public doesn't know enough about this technology to be able to know that they want it. But they'll start sooner than later having to adopt it for the protection, as Ted said. And then that's going to start changing the paradigm. I don't know if it's going to happen right away. I think CBDCs, because the government wants it so bad, because they could control us easily with it.
A CBDC is relative to a certain country. You know, Matt was saying 141 countries. Well, there's plenty of countries out there that don't want to develop their own and still want to ride on, you know, what we're doing.
The coattails of,
because it's a lot easier. But all that said, a CBDC, you don't have to take all your crypto, whatever you have, and stick it in one particular CBDC. If you want to buy a property in the United States that's worth X amount of dollars, then you have to be willing to do the same thing you would if it weren't a crypto transaction, right? You still have to identify yourself. You still have to go through KYC. You still have to go through all the steps as in a fiat transaction, only now it's digital and faster. And yes, the government knows who you are, but it's the same exact kind of transaction. Now, you're saying, okay, I want to take this amount of crypto and have it be worth $500,000 US so I can buy this house. Okay, well, in that transaction, you've identified yourself and you've created a taxable event. So whether you pay fiat or crypto, you're still going to end up having to pay.
You're still going to, and you're still going to be within the laws of that country,
right,
to buy that property in.
Right, but the point I'm trying to make is, you know, different countries are also going to have their own CBDCs, and if you want to do the same thing in those countries, you can, and you don't have to keep all of your crypto in a particular CBDC. It's a, you know, whatever flavor, wherever you want to take the crypto that you've had, and if you want to invest in crypto and do that be your main line, but still do these other things and use it in the IRL, then you're going to have that option with these CBDCs, and have that assurance that the government in that country is behind that kind of transaction.
I'm just a firm believer that it'll be the same way our cash works right now, which is our cash in Nigeria is looked at as the best cash to have in the world. So our CBDCs will have the most value for, even if another country, it's just going to be a way, just like right now. If you take your cash in and you want to convert it over to pesos or yen or whatever that currency is, it's the same thing, which is, you know, the American dollar is recognized as the top dog.
Yeah.
And then you still have the facilitation being able to happen through the digital currency, but I'm pretty sure they'll definitely take American CBDCs. They'll just, but then you got to say, okay, well, now if you're throwing it digitally into their system, what can they do with it? because
Yeah.
now they have full control over it.
Well, now we're getting back, now we're circling back to what I mentioned a little while ago, which was the data.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree with you on that's the main thing for me out of anything, which is the data. And that's what people need to understand, which is cryptocurrency. All cryptocurrency really is just being able to facilitate and transfer the value of data in many cases.
Absolutely.
Software.
You know,
And-
software. You're facilitating software and data.
And I feel like a lot of people, they always, have this doom and gloom about I'm giving my information to the government. What are they going to do? Are they going to be able to, shut me down or lock up my money at this point now that they have access? But I mean, the reality is that they can do that now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if some criminal organization gets broken up down the street, they mention you by name, what happens? They go to your bank accounts all get shut down. You go swipe your credit card. Why is this denied? Then there's the ATF outside this gas station that takes you into a holding cell. Then there's a professional interrogator that's there that knows every single thing about you, and that you like breakfast here at this place and go here at 2:00. The government already knows everything that they want to know about you, and if you're of interest, they'll find every single thing that's out there possible, and everything that you have can be seized, frozen, and the idea that crypto is foolproof as well. I mean, there's the reality of I forgot the exact case, but there's instances where people were involved in criminal activity and had wallet addresses tracked back and forth, and people get located. And especially now with Coinbase, now complying with different governments and paying taxes on things, it's here to stay. And you said it too. There isn't a world without blockchain anymore. And regardless of how people feel about their sentiment about cryptocurrency, the reality is blockchain technology has and will continue to change this world. And the wave is riding, and it's two-part for people. It's you either adapt to seize opportunity, because with AI and crypto, it's moving so fast. You have to adapt to grab the opportunity, but you also have to adapt to even survive. And if you don't, you just get pulled in the back and eventually find yourself drowning.
To me, 100%, it's the technology behind it, blockchain. So I agree with you as far as Bitcoin and crypto. It's not as safe as you think it is, kids. Is what I say. Whereas it's kind of the way that I view life in general. If somebody wants you, they'll get you, right? If someone's really got it out for you, they'll get you, because so. If the government wants to find and go after you, whatever it is, they're going to do what they're going to do regardless. But to me, what Bitcoin does at least is it allows you to be able to maneuver around more and be able to have more of a freedom to not just give in to them and have them take everything. You know what I mean? It allows you a lot more freedom on how you want to move things around and move yourself around than it is just having them go to one bank account.
Absolutely.
But quick little story for you kids. SHA-256. You know what SHA-256 is? It's the algorithm that is behind the encryption of Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. Do you know who invented SHA-256? NSA. Look that up. Think about that. The government created the encryption that Bitcoin uses. In fact, the government created the entire internet. I'm just saying, if you're going to release something to the world or let it be released to the world, and you're the creator of everything, just a few things to think about. It's a fact, though, that that's the encryption code behind Bitcoin, and that, look it up. It's on Wikipedia. I mean, It's that obvious. NSA created it. So I'm just saying, just a thought.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that speculate on. I mean, Pedro knows we could go hours into conspiracy
rabbit
theories
holes
about that.
This
whole space is rabbit holes.
I think the point that needs to be made, though, is we're talking about being careful in digital security.
Yeah.
And protecting your data. Whether we're talking about passwords or the amount of crypto you have an account or any of that kind of thing. So we all, and I want to make this point for all of us, since we've This is a pretty common topic in a couple of the online chats I'm in about the scammers that are out there and the different ways they try and get you, whether it's a text or a phone call or an email or any number of links they might try and send you to get you to click on. And this is part of what we need to make sure that people understand is don't ever click on anything you don't recognize who that's coming from. And if you want to do more research, if you happen to be online and get followed or communicated by a particular social media account, one super easy way to see how legitimate that account might be is to see how many of the posts that are on that particular account were made on the same day. I mean, they could have 100 posts, but if they're all made on the same day and they bought 10,000 followers and none of the posts have any views, it's probably not a legitimate account that's trying to communicate with you.
It's basically the Web3 version of the prince from Nigeria who wants to send you $10 million.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I feel like we were talking about that at the,
Wait. You mean that's not true?
Oh,
wait, I gotta go.
Yeah,
Shoot. Go ahead, man.
Huh?
Let me get to my bank account, bro.
Go ahead.
No, I was saying we were talking about that with security and discussing the other day on, how do we go ahead and present something to people to, educate them on, how to be safe, especially with, cryptocurrencies and, everything else that's going on now in, Web3. And when I started to kind of process on how you present that to people, it's almost overwhelming when you start to see how many of these different attacks are. I mean, it's pretty remarkable how it's absolutely
like Brett said, if they want you, they're going to get you. It's not that. I mean, it's not that hard for anybody to go search for anybody on social media and get enough information about them to try and get to them a few different ways, and whether that means getting to them personally or getting to their contacts, which is one thing that most people don't think about, that when they sign up for these things, is they give all these websites and platforms access to their contacts. And I assure you, most of your contacts would not be happy to know that they are now accessible to some platform that they're not even aware of.
Mm-hmm.
To take that to a kind of a bigger scale, so I have a client who works for Five Eyes. Five Eyes is like, they make NSA and the FBI look like Boy Scouts. They're like, they watch over everybody. Interpol, everything. And we were out to dinner one night, and we had a few drinks, so he probably shouldn't have showed me, but he brings out his phone and he's talking about hacking going on in the world, because their job is to monitor a lot of this, monitor the stuff that's happening in the world. And he brings out his phone, his iPhone, and he goes, look at this, and shows me his screen, and you see a globe, and you just see these laser lights, ball lights just going back and forth, constantly over screen, thousands and thousands of them. I said, what the hell is that? He said, these are all the attacks, computer attack, virus attacks that are happening in the world right now on a major scale. And there were literally thousands of them happening right as we're having dinner and having a drink. To kind of give an idea on a greater scale.
I recently read an audiobook called The Wires of War, and it talks about the gray wars, and a lot of that has to do with both Russian and Chinese cyber attacks over the last few years, and it's pretty interesting what's going on.
I bet.
It's pretty interesting what's going on, especially with China and Huawei, and how they're trying to establish a global 5G network, which is part of the race that Elon Musk is in to launch satellites against, so that type of government doesn't impose their will on that population.
I'm telling you, man, World War III will be fought with shutting off power grids. I'm telling you.
Well, don't forget North Korea.
I'm just saying.
North Korea has rooms that are dedicated by hundreds of North Koreans that all they do all day is try to hack and take money from wherever they can get it. It is crazy. It's like part of their GDP.
That's what I'm saying is, if you shut down a country's power grid, that's it. They're defenseless in every capability. In every single way, they are completely defenseless.
What are those things called? Those EMP bombs that can knock out?
Yeah.
Could you imagine what would happen to your life if all of a sudden, you're not a cyborg anymore and you can't use your cell phone?
Dude, I shoot that a security camera in my Hitman 2 game.
All right, but going back to the topic at hand, because we could get all kinds of sidetracked. There is one thing I want to mention on the whole CBDCs and FedNow. What's interesting to me, and I got no love for the Federal Reserve, for the way it started, 1913, the book Jekyll Island. You guys got to read that, okay? I got no love for him, all right? Andrew Jackson tried to warn us against all that, okay? And here we are. Now our money's inflated to no end. Anyone that has to go buy food just sits there and looks at the bill at the end of the day and is freaking out like, whoa, right? Especially if you got a family like I do. It is absolutely insane. So what is going to happen once these CBDCs are employed? I don't know. What I do know is today, what I find very coincidental is all the crypto banks have gone under, right? We've got Silvergate Bank, and I've beat this drum a bunch of times. We got
Signature.
We got what's the other one?
FTX.
FTX
banks.
is a bank. Wait, you got Silvergate,
Silicon Valley,
Republic, and Signature, right? So far. And I think there's 5 of them. But the point is, why right before they launch FedNow and about ready to launch all these CBDCs across the world, and these are, interconnected banks. Now you got to understand, Chase is the biggest bank right now, but they got banks everywhere. All right, Bank of America has banks everywhere. These guys are not just stuck here in the U.S. These are global entities that we're talking about. And all of a sudden, all these test projects are happening. You mentioned Nigeria, but how about Holland? How about the Netherlands? How about China? All this is going on this macro level, and I'm watching this, and I'm just shocked. I'm like, you cannot tell me that this is a coincidence, that these banks go under, that were perfectly solvent. On top of that, these banks were as solvent as 168 other banks, as I've seen per many Twitter posts saying that all these banks then should all be shut down too.
Pissed off the wrong person.
Right.
Basically, scenario.
So now that's happening, and I think what they're trying to do is they see that Bitcoin and some other technology like the smart contracts, et cetera, are actually becoming a very big threat to them. So they want to jump on this bandwagon. And the guys, let me tell you something, this isn't new. They've been working on this for years, 5, 6 years. This plan is at least that old, okay? So that being said, what can we as a bunch of guys do about it? Not a whole lot. We can shine a light on it, but we're not going to make a lot of difference, all right? That's the bottom line. We just got to figure out what their moves are so we can, try to stay on top of it, maybe earn a buck if we could. But like I said, blockchain is here to stay. And if you've ever done any kind of money changing on the internet, okay, in other words, having to get a loan in Agave, all right, those are kind of cool things that you could do that you don't have to deal with a banker. You just put up your Bitcoin as collateral, and wow, you get your money. Now, you could get a call on it, but wouldn't you get a call if you were messing with the stock market too? Whatever. The point is, guys, it's coming. Like you had mentioned earlier, that Matt is that new generation where they've grown up with this kind of world. What's going to happen, right, when these guys, these 21 to 25-year-olds are 35 and 40, and they've been messing with this type of technology for the last
They're going to be the ones taking over the world.
Right. Well, they're going to they inherit the world anyways.
Yeah.
Right. But what's going to happen with technology? If blockchain is going to be crazy. Look, when I was a kid, I'll give you an example, right? We had Atari, right? And we had I mean, shoots, we had rocks when I was a kid, right? And then now,
dirt piles.
Yeah, you get into
Sandbox.
and start gaming online. It is
Still have
surreal.
Tonka trucks?
I've got 15
Yeah.
and 16-year-olds, right? And I go in there and I'll play with them, like whatever the latest video game they
Yeah.
want to play. I love to play these things with them, right? It's a bonding moment, right? But it's way different from these two paddles that was in each other when I was a kid to now we're actually strategizing how we're going to go after the next group and how they're going to go on the
Yeah,
right.
they'll talk
they're
on
gonna
their
go the left.
headsets.
We got headsets. We have
It's
freaking
crazy.
guns and we're blazing, man. And what's going to happen 10 years from now when all these this other technology that's going to be like a 3D version of that, you can have your goggles on, your headsets, and you're going to be running. But wait a minute. How about money? When I was a kid, you could get a quarter and literally have a business. I mean, I used to have change that I would get, 50 cents, whatever. I'd walk to the 7-Eleven and I'd buy all this hard candy. I'd turn around and I'd sell it for 5 cents. I'd make 25 cents
Pedro
profit,
was that
right?
kid.
I was that kid. I would sell the damn candy, right? I was making a nice little business.
That's
Try to
funny.
do that with 25 cents today. You can't. Why? Inflation. Right? And then if you bring that all the way up to businesses, think about it. What business is out there that's going to give the small mom and pop shops an equal opportunity to get decent interest rates for decent money that they need for liquidity? When you start seeing that most of the restaurants that come in, they can't get a freaking loan to save their lives because they have a 94% drop in the first 2 years of being in business, right? And you get every small and pop. So what if they come up with a solution that is done through a blockchain technology that will angel fund all these people, and it's done in a manner that's decentralized, and we as investors can invest in things like that and help the public do better
And
things.
make it like Kickstarter, where you're investing in the project, but if there's not enough money that's raised and the project never takes hold, then all that money goes back to the people who invested it. So that's how Kickstarter works, right?
Yep.
Which you go on there and you say, I have this idea, I'm trying to raise funds or raise money for this business, here's what I'm trying to do. And then people contribute money, but at the end of the day, if the final goal doesn't get accomplished and the project doesn't get going, then whoever invested in it so far literally gets their money refunded to them.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing.
That sounds like a really great topic for another show with as we talk about some of the fractionalization opportunities that
Well, I know you've got some things going right now with your smart apps, or I'm sorry, with your apps as far as with the metaverse, kind of where you're talking about before, which is Ted's got some things designed where, you know, the future of real estate is going to be where people put on the goggles and they're able to go in and you're able to open that furnace. You're able to look at the wires. You're able to dissect everything you would if you're literally in the home. Talk a little bit about that, what you got going, man.
Sure. Well, I guess I neglected to mention that I also have a virtual tour company, and I've been working with Matterport since 2016 and do all kinds of not just Web 2 but Web 3 enabled e-commerce and virtual type pieces of content for residential real estate, but also for businesses and e-commerce. And I've actually got a space on a website called Spatial.io. I believe I'm the first real estate agent to have something like this, and I'll share a link in some of the social as we put this up. But I've actually got a metaverse type space. It's called the Tediverse. And
That's an original name, Ted.
Thank you.
I love it.
Tediverse.
Ted, you should do something like a talk. You should. Hey,
Yeah.
how about a TED
You know,
talk?
if you came up with TED Talk, with a TED Talk in the Tediverse.
My
Bro.
my IG handle is TED Talks Global Real Estate, so I do have that. But this immersive space that I have on Spatial.io has a virtual environment that you can walk around, and it's actually a meeting space too. So this is sort of the next evolution of.
So do you need goggles or anything?
You don't actually with Spatial. You can
Okay.
join with any platform from your phone to your laptop to a tablet, and join the space and communicate with people, sort of like on Zoom or a chat. You know,
Okay.
you can do a live chat, but you can also
What is done in the metaverse, but you can sit there and have chats with them. And
absolutely.
Okay.
And so I've got I have 3 sections in my space. The first section has a little bit about some of the things that I'm involved in, you know, including Proppy and Web3 type stuff. One section has my virtual tour company and all the things that we'll be talking about at another point. And the other side has my real estate interests from here in Las Vegas and South Florida, including new construction in both places, access to the MLS, and a way to make offers using Proppy's offer management system on pretty much any of the listings that you can find. So I'm pretty much taken the real estate business
And Web3 it.
meta. Right?
Yeah, you've taken a lot of different areas of real estate and you've put them into Web3 to make it
It's amazing.
a lot better. And that Ted is on the forefront of everything with what you're doing. I mean, that's the way real estate is going to be done as far as looking at properties, showing properties, people getting the information that they need. So you're way ahead of the curve, man. Good job, dude.
Thanks, I appreciate it. And I kind of want to maybe real quickly point out the difference between Web 2 and Web 3, and that is Web 2 is basically our current internet, and Web 3 would be a virtual version where you could immerse yourself and experience something quite a bit more than just going to somebody's website to see properties or do higher level things than you can do just at a website.
It's more intense, right?
Absolutely.
Web 1 was I go online and I can look at Time Magazine and I can look at the article, but I can't interact with it. All I can do is bring up the article and that's it. Web 2, what we have right now is taking that article and be able to immerse yourself in it and actually participate in that article, place yourself in that article, do social media, all sorts of things, and make yourself the content versus only content. I now become the content. Web 3, what Ted is talking about is actually us taking our own content and taking it back to ourselves and owning our own content.
Data. Use the word data.
Our data, yes. Taking our data, and that's really what Web 3 is consumers taking back their own data and owning their own data.
Yep.
So
Beautifully said.
That's super exciting. It for sure is going to be the future of the way we do things. And, you know, if you're in a couple of different markets like I am, I also deal in international real estate.
You do. I mean, you're doing this in Las Vegas, in Miami, and Dubai.
Correct.
So
All
Ted's
hubs of
worldwide,
technology.
baby.
Yeah.
Worldwide Ted. That's your new name.
Wait, who else has that, Mr. Worldwide?
Bull. What's that guy? Not
Pitbull?
Bulldog. Pitbull. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bulldog. Pitbull. Mr. Worldwide. That used to be my
All right,
name.
All right, Matt, bring us back to the CBDCs, brother, so we can wrap this thing up.
Yeah. I mean, essentially, they're here to stay, and that's what we ultimately started to talk about. Is there's so many countries that are bringing this in, and the reality is that they're coming, they're being developed, and
How soon are they coming, Matt?
they're here.
Well,
And I mean,
The reason why I asked that question is because I think a lot of people are feeling apprehensive or concerned about them just one day showing up. But the reality is that they're still a ways away because it has to get through all the political channels and laws being passed and everything. It's a year or two away.
Yeah, you're not dating her yet, man.
Yeah.
She's just staring at you, flirting across the bar.
yeah,
That's where we're at right now. With
At
it.
least, yeah, here in the U.S., it's going to take a while for it to pass legislation and actually get implemented. FedNow, they're rolling out in July, I believe,
Right,
which is separate.
Right, and I wanted to point that out too before we wrapped up today, and that is FedNow is essentially the government's version of PayPal or a Cash App or something.
That's a
like
great
that.
way of explaining it.
And so that's that could in fact have some bearing on why PayPal stock is dropping and whatnot, because fewer third party, there's going to be room for fewer third parties in the middle there when they don't need to be there. So And FedNow too, you mentioned earlier about there being a monthly expense. That ultimately it will get passed down to us, but that's an expense for our bank. That's not an expense that we actually pay.
They said there was a I believe it's like 0.045 cents is the transaction cost, is what they speculated.
So the fee, the $20 fee, is what the banks are being charged from the government?
Yes.
So they're being charged $20 per account or $20 period?
No, I'm sure it's $20 per.
Okay.
Per
Well,
account.
here's the thing. It's not that expensive. I think the way you guys are all familiar with XRP, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I'm not saying they ripped off XRP. I don't think so. But if you look how inexpensive it is for them to exchange, Ripple to exchange, right? One of my favorite movies is Armageddon with Bruce Willis. I'm dating myself. Love that movie. And he shows up and he's like, yeah, I see you guys have my designs. What, you guys get the key to the patent office? And they go, yep, that's exactly what we did.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the government, I don't think they're opposed to going into the patent office and picking up what they
Well,
need.
see, that's the point. I have a good friend who is a cloud architect for Microsoft I told you about, but he's worked for banks and their systems and their tech systems for years before that. And his whole case he's always made to me for years now with Ripple. And I'm sure the Ripple army hates to hear this.
Yeah.
But I guess whatever. Which is the banks and the government will never allow an outside company like that to come in and start implementing their things. They're going to wait to see how it works, the goods and bads, and then they're going to take the exact same technology and they're going to steal it and make it their own. They're never going to use Ripple. And that's kind of Ripple's army whole thing, which is the banks are going to use our system. And he's like, dude, I've worked for banks. I'm telling you, banks will never allow it. They're going to wait to see how it works. They're going to take the best of it and come up with their own version of it. That's how they work.
Yep.
Well, going to that note, look, Ripple Army, I got nothing but love for you.
So do I. Don't get me
love
wrong.
you
I don't want
guys.
any
You're
hate
my
mail.
people. I got no issue. Not here to say anything derogatory against your army. I love you guys. You guys stick together. I hope you guys are all millionaires and you guys want to, big ballers and all that. So don't.
Hey, I have nothing against them either, and I hold Ripple myself. So don't get me wrong. But hey, if there has to be a bad guy in this situation, I'll take the fall.
Good. He'll take the fall, guys.
Yeah.
So you go mess with him.
They'll email you.
I hear it anyways from people, so why not, man?
Right,
Throw
right.
it in.
But here's the thing. Look, let's bring this around full circle. So we now have all these banks falling down. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Oh, how coincidental. Then we got Fed now. Whoa. And so that's come on. And then we're going to have the CBDC version. It's probably going to be called US now. Something stupid like that, right? Whatever. So the reason it's being done is simple. They don't want to be a dinosaur, which makes sense. Now, I'm going to have to use the system. Guess what? You're going to have to use the system, and you're going to have to use the system. But this is how I think it will be. You had mentioned, Ted, and allow me. I think it will be employed this way. It's kind of the same thing they did with gold, if you remember. Bring in your gold, and we'll give you market value right now. So what was gold? Well, gold had a monetary value for $1, right? So they brought in their gold. They gave them exactly what it was worth. And then what happened? Within a short order, the gold went skyrocketing, right?
Up 35% as soon as the government then released it.
There you go. So here's the point. All you hoarders of dollars, God bless you. It's always good to have that cash around. I personally love cash myself. Not a lot, but a certain percentage of my portfolio. But I think what will happen is for all those people who are distrusting of the system, they're going to be ass out. That's as simple as that. There's going to be a window. All right. First, it'll be, keep your money, honey. It's all good. You can do everything you want. 6 months later, this is an announcement from your local governments. Please bring in all your cash. You've got 15 days.
That's where I see the value of Bitcoin is going to come into play.
Right.
Which is cash is, if you don't believe in the U.S. government right now, or you believe they're up to bad intentions, you have cash. because the government can't control your cash. But once they take away cash, what do you have? All digital currencies. So you either have the controlled one by the government, or then you have the alternative to that, which is Bitcoin, which is like your modern version of having cash.
Or if you believe there's other global superpowers coming after our dollar.
Yeah.
Which, we're seeing it targeted.
All right. Well, let's give a real quick roundtable of last words. So we'll start with who we started with. So let's do Matt, if I can find him. Hi. There you are. All right. Go ahead, give your last word on the subject, and let's close this up.
Yeah. If we, the future's here, and it's moving every day. We're seeing it day by day, and we're excited to talk about it.
All right. And let's do
Ted.
the TED Talk guy.
Tedverse.
TED Web. TED
Well,
Multiverse.
Thanks very much, guys. This has really been great, and I just want to, I guess, let everybody know that I'm participating in a lot of the things I am to help educate people on where things are going for their own benefit, as well as for the benefit of their clients. And I'm not just talking about any crypto real estate transactions, but their online data and how it's used and how they have control over it. So hope to be on the next one of these things. We'll talk about some of the other aspects of Web3 and how that's all going to play into how we're doing business moving forward.
All right. And Brett the Mainer, Brett Terminator.
Again, hey, everybody, thanks for watching. The point of this is just to get these conversations started and kind of hash things out, I guess, with conversations right in front of everyone. So we're at the very beginning of a brave new world, and I appreciate everyone for watching. We're just getting started. Catch you next week.
All right. And then that wraps the show. Thanks for showing. And leave the comments below or above or anywhere you want. Take care. God bless.